Hi there, my name's Wolfster and welcome to the next episode, episode 15 of the series, Is the Human Race About to Mature? Episode 15, Expansion of the Universe. I really hope that you, I hope that you have been watching at least episodes 13 and 14. For this episode to really make sense, you really do need to watch those two episodes as well, because these three are really tying in together. I could have filmed them actually as just one episode, but it would have just been too long and taken and exhausted me too. So I split them up into three. But this episode 15 is now following on from episode 14. So in episode 14, I brought us to going from the first particle to the first star and the first star system. Now, I'm going to expand on that from the first star that existed in the entire universe. And I did make the point that stars they're not just gas balls that will one day burn out. They are living entities in keeping with philosophy's panpsychism and also the new developments coming up in science today that is suggesting that everything is alive. Everything is alive. So life doesn't just exist in the ways that we have always acknowledged it. It exists in other forms. In fact, I'm going to say it exists in mineral form too. So the life forms that we acknowledge, animal and vegetable, it also exists in mineral as well. And the entire universe is alive. It's full of energy, teeming with energy, and it's full of life, and it's full of intelligence, information encapsulated in consciousness. So I brought you to understand in episode 14 to the point of the first star. And the first star formed its moons from when it was a gas giant to when it exploded into a star. It ignited, spontaneous combustion if you want to call it. That then became the first solar system because its moons then turned into its planets. And it expands by some of those planets that were formed themselves are small miniature gas giants that continue to expand, taking energy, taking the particles from that's around, and expanding. Eventually they themselves get to a point where they become huge gas giants and dense, and they then ignite and become new solar systems. And that's how we get so one star, the first star, may have produced, it's hard to say, let's just say, let's say in keeping with our own solar system, it may have produced 4 more new stars. And those 4 more stars continued, and it just kept going and going and going until we end up with a galaxy, the first galaxy. Now, as I've said, these stars don't just burn up what they've produced. They continue to consume energy. They're actually transfer points or generators, if you want to call them that. Whatever you like to call them, but they draw in energy from the ether and transfer it into matter. And they do that because now they're stars with such incredibly violent eruptions within them. They convert matter very, very quickly, very rapidly, as opposed to how I said matter originally started. Although that process does still continue, but most of the matter we've got now comes from stars. So these stars, these new stars, they have, and in their gas giant stage, they had their moons, and their moons become planets. And so the galaxies start to occur. Now, as I have said, everything has to have purpose. Purpose is the key. I've used this in many videos now, and probably will continue to use it. This is a basic principle of everything that the universe is based around. Energy seeks purpose, creates life. That process produces information encapsulated in consciousness and keeps expanding. So the next time it gets to here, then it's expanded, so it uses up more energy, which seeks more purpose, which increases the complexity of life, which feeds in more information into the consciousness, and that keeps going and going and going in a cycle. And that's how the universe expands with information and with purpose, and that's how life grows and develops. So this also applies even to stars, galaxies even. Galaxies develop. So you may end up with, obviously, I can't do 1 billion dots on my board, so I'm just going to do a few, okay? But you have stars, around all these developing as it expands, as new gas giants ignite, forming more stars. The galaxy actually grows. Now, I think I might have omitted actually something that's quite important. As I stated when I was talking about how atoms develop, their spirits actually add, and that's what causes the valence shelves. This actually, I'm going to go back. Sorry, I'm going to go back a little bit. When that first planet was formed, that first gas giant was formed, it continues to gain energy, but it gets to a point where it has to transform or become stalled. But just as with particles, with atoms, with molecules, the energy keeps attracting energy, and also energy is under compression, and so energy continues to be attracted around it. But just the same as particles, the same as atoms, and even when it gets to this large gas giant, stage, there's an energy field that forms around it. And that is spirit. Okay? And that is an energy field made up of tri-orbs that I've spoke about in episode 13. That's why you really need to watch it all. So that forms a spirit around it. And when this gas giant ignites, missed that. When the gas giant ignites into a star, then you've got an energy field remains, and so the star has like an aura or a spirit, or whatever you want to call it, an energy field around it. With a star, that's quite enormous, and the smaller planets are in its sphere. So there, which were once its moons, but now it's planets. They're in the energy field of the star. And so I can call that, I like to call this energy field spirit. And that's all encapsulated in consciousness, information which is alive. It is literally alive. Now, when we get galaxies forming, so instead of these being individual stars, now think of them as galaxies. Okay, billions of stars developing. Now, when the first galaxy gets to the size where it's become so big that it itself needs more purpose, then the first galaxy ejected some stars, and that became another smaller galaxy. And these galaxies, the same as stars, also are enveloped by the combination of all the spirits in that surround the stars, or the aura, or the energetic field, whatever you want to call it. I prefer to call it the spirit. So the energy fields that are around each star combine in the galaxy, and so the galaxy then has its own energy field. It's actually, the pattern just replicates itself all the time, and this is what we see. We see it in nature. You see it everywhere. Everything is replicated, but replicated in its own way. It has individual characteristics. So everything isn't a clone of everything else. So we know that stars, although they may have come from another star system, they will be a different size, different density, and when they ignite, they can ignite at different time periods, and so we get stars that are different from other stars. Different personalities, if you like. Just the same as, taking it now much more into the future, but when a baby is born with mum and dad, they're not a clone of the parents. They're an individual. And it's exactly the same thing with stars, with planets. As a star, or as a planet, a gas giant, ignites, then it becomes a unique star. And we know this. Every star, they look at them, they know, they categorize them, I know, into different groups. Red giants, different types of stars, white stars, yellow stars, which is like our sun. But they're all different. Every star system is different. And this is also part of purpose, because nothing is to be a clone of everything else. Everything has individuality to it, and this is what makes it life. And that's why we have this. Everything that comes in feeds in new purpose, it becomes life, but it gives in new information. New information always coming. Whenever anything is created, it's not a clone, but it has its own purpose, its own self, its own identity. This we see happening everywhere in the universe. Just like, how many people have we got on the earth today? Is it 7 billion, something like that? I'm not sure. I think it's something like about 7 billion. But everyone's an individual, and everyone's on their own journey. And it's the same with stars, planets. Everyone, everything is a unique individual, and it contributes to the universe. It contributes to that energy, that information that is fed into consciousness. So you and me and my photographer behind the camera there, we are all individuals, and we all, in our own way, contribute to information. Just like every snowflake that falls is different. That's boggling, isn't it? You go up into the snowfields. We were just talking about it. You go up into the snowfields and you think every tiny snowflake is different. Wow. And everything is different, and it has to be different because it's seeking its own purpose and it's feeding in new information which the consciousness is craving so it can continue to expand and grow and learn. So, where was I now? I've forgotten myself. So, yeah, the galaxies. So stars have their own energy field, star, and it has its own energy field. Multiple galaxies held together by gravity. I'll talk about gravity in a minute. But stars have their own energy field. Then galaxies, they have their own energy field. So spirit exists almost like an onion. Every atom has its own spirit, which creates the valence shells. Every molecule has its own spirit. Every element has its own spirit. Every being, every dust particle has its own spirit. Every planet has its own spirit. And then every galaxy has its own spirit. This is why in indigenous cultures, when we talk about something beyond ourselves, they talk about Great Spirit. Some people can call it God if you want to. I don't like that term God because of other things that's connected to. But if you want to, you can call it God or Great Spirit. Some people nowadays, I'm finding that they actually say just the universe. The universe has a will. It has a purpose. It has a purpose for me. If that's how you want to think of it, then yeah, that's fine. But I hope I'm helping you to actually understand it. because I do believe, although I tend not to follow too much religion because for various reasons, but I do believe that faith is actually, well, they say faith is a virtue. I think that's pretty true. And I'm not here to try to destroy faith. In fact, I'm hoping that by understanding how the universe comes about, understanding spirit and the different layers, the different levels of it, that you can connect to, if you're developed enough, you advance yourself to that point where you can connect to it, then you can actually understand what you're connecting to. And I think if you understand that, then that helps you to have more faith, stronger faith. I'd like to maybe illustrate that by, let's just take two people and they've got to go somewhere. They've got to see someone, go to an event. And two people get on an aeroplane. And these two people have got a morbid fear of flying. Ooh, terrible fear of flying. But they've got to go to this destination. It's important. Now, one person, actually, just as he's about to get on the plane, he's done a bit of an understanding of aerodynamics. And he sees the wingspan, he knows the thrust of the engines, and works out, oh yeah, that's how it stays in the air. And as long as the engines keep going okay, then he doesn't, he's still got to put faith in that the plane is going to get him to his destination. But by understanding how it all works, that actually strengthens his faith. Whereas the person who has no knowledge about how an aeroplane stays up in the air, no knowledge about thrust or aerodynamics, then that lack of knowledge means they've got blind faith. If that just to get on the plane, they're working with blind faith, not reinforced faith. So what I'm saying here is I'm hoping that I'm not trying to break down faith, because I do believe that that is a virtue that we can have. But by trying to explain what Great Spirit is, what God is, if whatever you want to call it, if you want to call it that, the great universe, the source is another one many people like to use. What I'm trying to do is explain what that was and how that came about, and also how you can communicate with it. It is possible. So I'm not trying to take away faith, I'm trying to enforce it. And I hope that's how it's coming across. So, coming back, I've gone off on a tangent now, haven't I? Yes, I have. Coming back to the universe, how it continues to grow. So we've got the galaxies here developing. That's something I was going to talk about, and I'll go into this now. Is about gravity. What causes gravity? As I've said, you got a large body here. Now maybe this can be anything from a particle to the biggest star, or even the galaxy. This same principle applies. You've got something that has become matter, so solid, and that has a pressure exerted to it because it is in the ether, or the, what I like to use the Sanskrit, the akasha, which exerts pressure from all directions. And that is what, that pressure, anything on the surface, that is also matter, has the pressure, but between here and here, I should have done that, maybe I'll do it, something on the surface, but there's a tiny gap. So the pressure here is greater than the pressure between here and here. So whatever is on the surface is not pulled to the planet or whatever it is, it's actually pushed. And actually Newton, when he first sat under that apple tree, he pondered both. Not many people realize this. He said, either there's a force that is in the earth pulling the apple down, or there's a force from above pushing the apple down. Sadly, he sort of settled with just that one, that there must be a force in the earth pulling it. And that we've just followed that one idea without further investigating the other theory that he had. So what I'm saying is he went the wrong way. And instead, that science should have gone to looking at forces that push. But of course, that means that the ether exists, and that means free energy. Oh, we can't have free energy, can we? So, when we're talking about then larger bodies, like stars and planets, so you've got a bigger star and a smaller planet. So how does that work? Well, again, energy is everywhere, exerting forces, and it's also exerting forces here. But the distance between here and here has less force because there's a gap there. It's not that energy still comes around, but the pressure of the force of the ether is less in between the two larger bodies, the solid bodies. So these are solid bodies. Now, I call that gravitational shadow, because there's less pressure in this area than what there is everywhere else. So that means that the larger body, whether it be a moon going around a planet, or a planet going around a star, or stars going around the galaxy, there is less pressure here. However, we've got the other force, because they're moving very fast, we've got centrifugal forces, which actually want to send it in a straight line. So you've got these two forces competing with each other, and when they balance out, that causes this body to orbit. Does that make sense? I hope it does. I hope it does make sense to you. So I'm introducing now another theory, gravitational shadow. Some might say, well, how does that work with the moon? Because we know that the moon affects the the tides. Well, that's simple enough. Here we've got the Earth. Excuse my writing. The Earth and the Moon, a little bit smaller. Moon. Earth and the Moon. So the gravitational shadow here, the pushing effect is weaker, which means around the rest of the Earth, and particularly on the oceans, the force is stronger. Now, do you remember back to your science school days when you held a glass and you filled it with water and put a piece of cardboard underneath it, and then you lift the glass up off the bench and it stays? That's because of atmospheric pressure. Well, it's the same principle. There's more pressure under here to the rest of the Earth, and particularly of the oceans, of course, more pressure, but less pressure here. So less here. Now what that does is when the gravity pushing down on the water that's not in this shadow compensates for the lack of pressure in the shadow, which means the mass rises. And that is how the Moon and the gravity pushing creates tides, the rising and falling in the Moon's gravitational. So hopefully that's explained some of physics to you, and how important it is to understand that indeed the universe is absolutely teeming full of energy. Orbs, I've called them. And so much that they're under pressure. And this is how the mechanics of our universe works. I'm even going to demonstrate a little bit about how large our universe might well be. We've got in astrophysics a term called the what do they call it now? The known universe. We call it the known universe. So there's billions of galaxies. There's billions of them, all right? But we can only see all the galaxies. But we can only see out so far. And it appears that there's nothing past what we can see. Something I'm going to say to you, this is another new thought. Our universe is actually so big that it is another orb. It's another orb. I wouldn't like to try to put a conception to it, to how big, but the known universe is maybe here. And so the only reason we can't see what's here and here is what we call line of sight. So does that give you an idea how big the universe might be? Well, and I think I believe it to be an orb, another globe. And there may well be other universes. Now this just boggles your mind, doesn't it? It really does. Boggles your mind. And we, as we mature and as we develop ourselves, we become moving from a biological being to a much more advanced stage, starting with becoming androids and then developing from there into amazing whatever. We will have as our race, we will have our own unique way of doing things. But imagine how much there is out there for us to explore, to do. Ever think you're going to get bored? You lived 1 billion years. Do you think you're going to get bored? No, there'll be something new every day. So, this gives you an idea of how vast the universe may well be. Now I'm going to come back, and I think hopefully I've explained to you how gravity works as well. Now I'm going to come back to where I was before and talk about the expansion of the universe. Stars, as I've said, stars become new solar system, produce multiple new solar systems, which produces galaxies. And that is the purpose of the star. The star's purpose is to reproduce and to continue to convert energy, converts it into heat and to light. And that is the purpose of the stars. And each star has its own planetary system, and some of those planets are gas giants that go on to more stars. However, a problem occurs. As I've said, everything needs purpose, and not all planets are actually gaseous. Some, we know, we're standing on one right now, we know that they're rocky. And there has to be a purpose for these rocky planets too. Now, as the universe has grown, galaxies have formed, billions and billions of rocky planets have yet to find a purpose. And some of them have actually fallen and actually gone into decay. Now, at this point where I'm talking about now, I've gone a long way from the beginning of the universe to the time when time began, to now. There is an incredible amount of knowledge, life. There's information everywhere. It spreads through the different levels of spirit, which I've spoken about. And emotions have also developed in this spirit. And there is now an urgency for some purpose to be found for the rocky planets. Because they're alive too. They're alive and they need to find purpose. So, how did it go about doing that? Oh, I'm just going to go back to something I've just noticed in my notes here, that I need to talk about the galaxy. I'll jump in here because I don't want to forget this point. This is about black holes, because science today actually says that black holes are actually stars that are burnt out. No. A black hole is, and they're always at the center of a galaxy, with stars going around them, billions of them. I'm not going to stand here all day. Billions of them, and they're all rotating. Now, that rotation captivates the ether that's all around it, and that also then moves in that rotation. It also rotates the ether until it gets to the central point where that rotation becomes so fast that it exceeds the speed of light. So what do you have? No light can be reflected. So it looks for every bit like a black hole. But it is actually just the center of the circling galaxy, that at the center it's a bit like you ever pulled the plug out of a sink, and around the outside the water goes quite slow, but as it gets to the center it gets faster and faster and faster. This is the same principle that causes black holes. So they're not the feared evil things sometimes they're portrayed to be. They're not, well, they actually form the purpose of, they're the cleaners. So any matter that is like debris ends up going in there, and that because it moves so fast and faster than the speed of light, it actually gets turned into gamma radiation, which then feeds out from that center's poles. As I've said, everything is polarity, so it has poles too, and that eventually decomposes and turns back to, nothing is ever destroyed, but it turns back to the original orbs to be potentially recycled. That's the way of the universe. So I just thought I'd jump in there before I forget it, because I think that's another important understanding, because some would say, well, if stars don't die, they don't burn out, then what causes black holes? Okay, so what occurred to give purpose to the rocky planets? I've spoken about how stars develop, but what about I'm going to focus now right down on the rocky planets that for a long, long time have no purpose. At some point, and this would have been almost like winning the lottery as well, but at some point a planet or a star system had a planet that was just in what we call the Goldilocks phase, just in that right position. It was the right size. It had everything perfect that the now intelligence of the universe, whether you want to call it creator or whatever you want to call it, but it's information encapsulated in collective consciousness, that then can experiment. And that intelligence experimented with this unique planet that was positioned just right. I mean, what's the odds of winning the lottery? But eventually someone does. So there was this one planet that developed, and with the intelligence that had been fed in, because it was constantly seeking purpose, it was able to use something to create something very, very similar to and made up of what I said in episode 13. Orbs. Except these planetary beings now, and I'm going to call them planetary beings because they're alive, they're living, except when I spoke about orbs in episode 13, they were like the same, they were very, I think I called them teensy-wincy, but about the same size as strings in string theory. But this new planet that was in perfect position, that had lots of things going for it, it was able to produce clusters of pure energy. And so this is a different type of orb. It's not formed out of tri-orbs that form matter. It's just a cluster of pure energy. And these planets can use that as balls to create other things within them, within those energy fields. So it's the now that planet is using almost reverse engineering, where I said before that the particle reached its maximum amount before it didn't have any purpose anymore, so it created an energy field around it. And so the energy field was created around the particle. This is kind of reverse engineering, where the intelligent planet forms a spirit or an orb, and then it creates inside it. And this was then discovered to be, by the planet and by the universe, to be a purpose for the rocky planets, but only for those that are in perfect position, of course. And the first thing that was developed inside these orbs. By the way, we see them. Many of you have probably seen orbs yourself. I've seen them. I've seen them when nature needs healing. Like I've spent some time in Australia, and I've seen them when there's been bushfires. The planet actually uses them as healers. These are even sometimes mistaken as flying saucers as well. The ones that go tung, 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 tung. They wouldn't be flying saucers, they would be orbs. And our planet, the Earth, who does exactly what I'm saying now, uses orbs to clean up things, to heal things, to look after things. It's kind of like the hands of the planet. The planets use orbs to do things. And so the first thing that was created was actually very, very simple vegetation. So it beautified itself. It created green vegetation. Each one became more and more complex as things went by, until the vegetation became so rampant on the surface of the planet that too reached its point where it had no more purpose. So the planet then moves into, well, what can we do about this? It creates orbs and created something to manage the vegetation, which was, we call it today, herbivores. And so the herbivores munched away and kept the vegetation under control, but they themselves got out of balance and they started to eat too much vegetation. So the next step, obviously, is something to control the herbivores, carnivores. So here now we've got the framework, vegetation. This information is fed also through the ether, through spirit, to any other planets that might be in that perfect situation, although they were very, very few, and they still are very, very few. But any that can capitalize, if you like to say, on this information, that information is transferred. And so that began to happen on other planets as well. Because by now, well, what are the odds of winning the lottery? Billion to one, or 100 million to one, whatever it is. So that means out of tens of billions now of planets, there's a few out there that will get it. And so things developed, each is finding its own purpose, each is experimenting. There's in the collective consciousness of the universe, there is sharing going on, and things continue to get more and more complicated, more and more complex, more and more intricate, and more interesting in their complexities. So different species eventually come, but even that then gets to a point where, okay, this is great for all these other planets that might be in that perfect position, but what about all the others? What can be done about the others? And so now this, what I'm saying, leads into, you're going to have to wait for it. This here is episode 15. I'm going to talk about the beginning of humanoid and the role that humanoids have in all of this and in solving the problem of all these other planets. We've found them recently. We call them exoplanets that are around us, but life can't, because they're not perfect in the perfect position. Something needs to help them. Something needs to come to their aid. And that is the role of humanoids. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'll see you in episode 16, where I'm going to develop our role, the role of the humanoid in the galaxy, in the universe. So I'll see you in 16. Please also, if you haven't, you can see my website there, which is basically www.isthehumanraceaboutttomature. So please, if you wish to, go into that. And I'll see you in episode 16. Okay? Oh, don't forget, what every YouTuber says, they all say it, and I have to say it too. Yep. Please give me a like. Please share it. Please help me, because all I'm doing, I'm not making any money out of this. It's costing me money. I'm doing this because I know I've got something. I feel I've got something to share. It's helped me. I know it's helped other people already. And I want it to help you, and I want it to help others. So if you have that like mind, then please help me to do that, to help other people and get this out there. Yeah, okay, thanks. Bye for now.